Welcome to the Farm to Fork Soundbites mini-series. We are joining you live from the Rabobank Farm to Fork conference in Sydney on the March 23rd to share with you key themes and insights from throughout the day. My name's Michael Harvey. I'm a senior analyst based out of the Melbourne office, and today I'm joined by Eve Stevens from our New Zealand team, who's based out of Christchurch.
Hey Mick, great to be here. What a fantastic day.
It is. It's nice, one, to be here together and doing a
Absolutely.
podcast together for the first time, so it's very exciting.
For sure.
So let's jump right in. We've just had an extensive session after lunch. It went for about 2 hours, and it was really around a broad theme around innovation in food and agricultural supply chains. And there was a number of different sessions to the broader session. There was a panel discussion, there was a couple of presentations from different groups. Let's just have a quick look at each of those ones, Eve. And I'll throw to you first and talk about the session we had from a team talking about drones and what they're doing in terms of the technology that's available and where things are going and what that might mean for agriculture.
Yeah, we're lucky enough to have a fascinating session with Paris Kokonos and Stephen Cassiu from Sphere Drones, and they really highlighted to the audience the potential in drones and drone technology in the years ahead. So just to put a few numbers around it, currently there's around 32,000 drones being used in Australia at the moment, but their projections are out to 2030 that there's going to be around 110,000 drones being used in Australia. So when you think about it, around 51% of Australian land mass is being used for Agri. That equates to a whole lot of potential in the Agri sector for drones to be utilised. And so they're really talking about, how these technologies can interface. For example, having satellites in the sky which are able to take images of activities on farm and then be able to, if it picks up on something, send that image off to a drone, which then can send a message to a robot, which might be some technology you have on farm. Let's say a little robot that can go off and address an issue. So really some, drones are going to be one piece of the solutions going forward, but really all these technologies are going to work in together. So just thinking about what, some of the benefits from drone technology alone, I'm thinking back to New Zealand sheep and beef systems. That's what I specialise in, Mick. Huge potential. I know there's already a lot of drones being used on farms in New Zealand. We already have one for mustering deer and checking on stock, but really great opportunities for farm safety, being able to check on people if people are running a bit behind schedule, make sure they're actually okay, being able to use them for monitoring feed, increasing your time efficiency, and then future potential applications and carbon tracking, killing weeds, pests, and doing a whole lot of other things huge potential in drones. So really interesting session. But Mick, you were lucky enough to attend a session with John Deere. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what came out of it?
Yeah, and I thought that was a really good session. It was interesting, the connection back to Rabobank. So that was a session that was headed up by Luke Chandler, who some would be familiar with the Rabobank, having been general manager of the Rabo research team a few years ago. He's gone on to be running the Australian New Zealand business for John Deere, and he was also had on stage with him Emma Ford, who was looking after their aftermarket business for their business here in Australia and New Zealand. And they talked a lot about, the start of the session was really about reflecting on where we've come from around technology when it comes to, machinery, and then, talking about the bigger picture and just how quickly some of the technology's coming along, how close to commercialisation some of this stuff is. And they used the story, which was quite interesting, coming from a dairy background. They talked about using Wilma, the wheat plant, to sort of follow through just how specific and tailored some of the technology is around what they're doing with the plants at seeding, then once they start to grow, right through to harvesting, really being tailored in terms of the usage of your inputs with the machinery that they're using and selling, and clearly what, the benefit that delivers back on farm around cost savings, environmental footprint benefits, those sorts of things. And Luke really did summarise some of that at the end, just talking about just how close to commercialisation some of this product is. There are driverless, harvesters that are deployed in certain markets already around the world. Some of these ones that are tailoring right in on the plant when it comes to application of crop protection and fertiliser are a couple of years away. So their theme was really around the future of farming. Are you ready? And just reinforcing just how much technology has come, how quickly it's still moving, and how close it's going to be for farmers here in Australia and New Zealand, and just leaving that thought with the with the audience here around, are you prepared? What are you doing right now to start to think about some of these technologies that can be deployed on their businesses and farms moving forward? So I thought that was a really good session.
Oh, fantastic. And pretty extraordinary. You think about how far technology's come even in the last 5 years, and that it's just leaping forward in quantums, really.
That's right.
Amazing what's going to be coming our way.
That's right. And then we had a session, and I'll get you to talk to this one. So we had the Farmer of the Year for here that was announced recently here in Australia. His name was Brad Egan. He had a really fascinating story around what they've done with their business and how they've used data to transform the performance of the business.
Yeah, it's a fantastic story, Mick, and really a story around using data to help quantify the gut feel and using data to make really informed farm management and financial decisions. And they talked, obviously, Brad has used a lot of the data already available on the farm and used that to really create a picture of understanding their soils and their climate in Western Australia, so an arable property. And through using that data, actually over the past few years, the average rainfall has been declining. It's been below average, looking on a 10-year view. But in that same period of time, they've managed to achieve some quite incredible increases in crop yield. For example, increased wheat yields by 1.5 tonne by using data to really actually improve their soil. The big weakness in their whole system was in places had some very light sandy soils, and then other areas had some quite heavy waterlogged soil. So being able to take the clay from those heavier areas of the farm and actually spread that clay elsewhere and improve the water retention capacity of soils and start to build carbon within the soil. And that was all flowed through to increase yields. But on top of that, they're using all sorts of interesting precision agricultural technology to be able to make sure they're getting the right nutrient in the right place, to be able to maximise from a cost perspective, but also being able to help support the fertility and building of those soils and optimising crop yield. So really fantastic story. And one thing that I really liked about it is he talked about the value of having everyone in your business working towards the same goal, and using that data helped everyone get on the same page, work towards the same goal, and made it very easy to make some significant financial decisions to, ameliorate, 100 hectares at a time to 200 hectares at a time, whereas they started off on the smaller scale. So fantastic story around using data to make really informed decisions.
And just on that, Eve, there was a video that was played just before the John Deere session that talked about a family of croppers here in Australia talking about their use of data and technology on farm. And one of the family members made that comment in that video that, one of the good things about the data that they're using on their business and in their family farm was around using data to avoid conflict, because you can't argue with the data,
Exactly.
which I thought was quite interesting.
And something else Brad said that I loved was actually for him using data has helped him accelerate his learning as a farmer. So as a farmer, often a lot of decisions you get to make them once a year, and then you've got to wait a whole year before you get the opportunity to make that decision slightly differently. So collecting data has enabled him to speed up that learning process. And when he overlays that data that he's gathering with, that in-depth knowledge of the property that his family has and parents are involved in the business, it just really allows them to make leaps forward. So I love how they're combining new technology and data with, wonderful knowledge and experience on the land.
And he showed the mapping imagery of the farm, the transformation it went from, before they were doing the stuff that they were doing to where it is right now. It was a remarkable transformation, just bringing on productive land and really high yielding land.
Yeah, totally turned the farm around in, 6 years within a short period of time. Mick, you were really lucky enough to attend a really interesting panel discussion looking at disrupting the food and fibre chain. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the key messages that came out of that session?
And that was a good session, and it's always going to be a good session when you have Tim Hunt as the chair, who's again, ex-Rabobank general manager for our team, so someone that we're very familiar with, and he did a great job. There was 5 speakers up on stage, each from a different line of business, but really the whole session was trying to unlock a couple of key themes around how to use traceability in supply chains for value creation. How do you better collaborate across the supply chain from primary producer through to customer, and then what are some of the pitfalls around getting technology up and running and getting it to market, but also what are the key key lessons you can learn around what you can do well to do that. So there was lots of discussions from these different businesses around what they're doing, but I'm just going to reference one of the ones that they spent a bit of time talking to, which was around Good Earth Cotton. So that was a business that's using obviously regenerative farming practices in their business to deliver a value-added product to market around carbon neutral cotton. And so there was a bit of discussion around, what they went through as a business, getting it to market, but where it actually sits around, offering, obviously getting a premium in the market, trying to build the business case out to find new customers, but just generating benefit for everyone along the supply chain. And so there was a lot of discussion in that session, but there was also some discussion, which I thought was quite interesting, given the timing around. We had a chat with someone from Rabo Ventures talking about just the current operating environment at the moment. When you're talking about all this ag tech, you need capital, and to see that these technologies and these companies coming to market, you're going to still need to see capital coming in. It was just a quick comment and an important point that Tim raised around the current environment, where you've got high interest rates, you've got high inflation, you've got financial market instability. It does create a little bit of pressure when it particularly comes to things like venture capital markets. So there was still a very positive story that they still see capital coming in. They still see lots of investment in willingness to invest in certain technologies in the food and agri supply chain. But an interesting note that we've got that sort of environment that we're dealing with at the moment.
But that alone, that gives confidence to producers around the future that investors see in the ag space, and see the value in investing in agri tech to support increased sustainability of food production. I think that's a great story in itself, and we've got to remember that, especially our Kiwi farmers. There's a lot of challenges and things happening in New Zealand at the moment, but people outside ag still see the potential and are investing in agri tech.
That's right, and I think this would have been picked up in a lot of the other discussions and panel and presentations we've had throughout the days around, the whole food systems on a significant transition, an energy transition, a climate risk transition, a macro consumer demand transition as well. So, you're going to still need to see capital coming in, lots of agricultural innovation in the supply chain, which is going to create plenty of opportunities for businesses.
For sure. So just to wrap up now, Mick, I guess a few key messages that have come out of our discussion and the sessions we've enjoyed this afternoon is really around the power and opportunity in data, and that data can help give greater clarity throughout the supply chain, greater clarity to the decisions that you're making on farm, and allows with that more transparency, which is really valuable when being able to communicate the uniqueness and the value add of your product to consumers. And it helps to build that relationship with consumer if you're able to share with them, tell them what you're doing and why it's fantastic, and give them assurance in the product that you're producing. So lots of exciting things there happening, and really interesting to see where this space goes into the future.
That's right. The whole theme around data, there was a couple of speakers that talked about the framework around management of data, why you're collecting it, how you collect it, what you're doing with it, and then how do you measure success around what the data that you've got. And you touched on it. There's so much data already out there, but with new technologies coming down the pipeline, there's going to be more and more available. You just got to make sure you're maximising all that data.
Absolutely, and thinking about how we can share that, making sure there's opportunities and value for both parties if you are sharing data. So lots to think about. Thanks for the catch up, Mick. Great to sit down and really digest some of the information that's come our way this afternoon. That was great to be on the podcast with you, Eve. Let's not wait till the next Farm to Fork to get together and do a podcast. Cheers, Mick. Thank you.